Welcome to session 16 of Living is Dying. My name is Sering and Ross and Ben are our tech support today. We begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and other lands and recognise their connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Today we are continuing with chapter 4 of Living is Dying, How Buddhists Prepare for Death. And to guide us through the next section, remind yourself about what is about to happen. I have pleasure in welcoming our special guest speaker, Ani Lhagsam, an ordained nun from Shenrezig Institute on the Queensland Sunshine Coast. Ani Lhagsam provides spiritual care to those who request her assistance towards the end of their life. Since 1994, she has been involved with the Chittamana and Karuna hospice services. Lhagsam began her career in health as a registered nurse with a certificate in psychiatry and mental health. She has a postgrad certificate in palliative care from Flinders University in South Australia and has also worked with drug and alcohol services. Ani Lhagsam will be guiding us through the death meditation with our Living is Dying team member and palliative care nurse Kirsten assisting. I'll first read what Rinpoche says from the book. Remind yourself about what is about to happen. Start reminding yourself about what happens during the painful bardo of dying. The stages of dissolution are described on page 128. Remind yourself that these stages could happen all at once, one after another, or in a different order, depending on your unique situation. So it's vital that you familiarize yourself with all the details before you die. If you know that you'll die very soon, for example, if you've just been diagnosed with a fast-moving terminal disease, you should immediately reacquaint yourself with these teachings so that at death you know what is going on. So today we're in the very fortunate situation of having Ani Lhagsam here to guide us through this process. And for this session, we ask that you please keep your questions and comments until the end of the session, when there will be an opportunity to unmute and ask Ani Lhagsam questions or place your questions in the chat box. But to prevent any disturbance to the meditation, if you could please wait till the end after the meditation is finished to make your questions. So now I hand you over to Ani Lhagsam. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Sering, and good evening, everyone, or good whatever time of day it is. The first thing I wanted to talk about briefly was the posture that the Buddha lay in when he was dying. And so this is sometimes called the lion posture, and it's recommended that we do this evening when we're ready to go to sleep. Because we could die during our sleep. We don't know if we'll wake up in the morning. But this posture would, for most ordinary beings, including myself, would be very hard to maintain. Even while I sleep, I move around. But it does help us to remember our Buddhist path. And if the last thought we have at night is about the Buddha, then this is very virtuous. So there's no better thought than remembering the Buddha. So the meditation we're going to do, we're practicing our death, if you like. And so if you're happy, you can lie down. But many people also die sitting up because they're not well enough to lie down. And so either way. So in terms of the posture, Kirsten's going to show you. So sometimes the Buddha is shown lying with his right hand on his right cheek, and blocking off the right nostril with the ring finger. So the breath through the right nostril is the breath of attachment. So this helps us reduce our attachment or remind us about reducing our attachment, particularly at the time of death. We want to reduce our attachment to all the things, all the actions, family, friends, etc. of this life, because we're leaving them behind. And so this posture is also sometimes shown with Buddha's head propped up on his arm. And so either way, it's just different artistic representations that help remind us that there was a particular way that Buddha died, with his left arm along his body. And there are many, many statues and pictures showing Buddha at this time. And then secondly, I wanted to talk a little bit about the elements of the body. Just briefly, they're mentioned in the meditation, and some of you might be very familiar with this. So as we're developing from conception, these various elements come together and form our body. So the earth element, some of you will know these: earth, water, fire, air elements. So the earth element represents all the hard parts of our body: bones, tendons, ligaments, and these are the parts of our body that give us strength. The water element is all the liquids of our body: blood, saliva, urine. The fire element is the warmth of our body, and it's also involved with digestion of food and drink. And then the air element is our breath, but also involves movement within the body. We need that air element on a more subtle level. So now, Ross, could we please have the image of the channels and chakras? So these various elements have made up our physical body, but we also have what's called a subtle body of these various channels and chakras within our body. So for acupuncturists, this is the subtle body that they use, and other traditional healing techniques also use these various channels, described in different ways, but it's the chi, the energy within the channels, that is what they actually work with. And so traditionally within Buddhism and within Buddhist healing practices, these channels and chakras are slightly different, and the energy that moves within them is often translated as wind. The wind's moving in the channels. So, so then we have the chakras. There's 4 shown in the image on your screen. The important ones for this meditation are the crown chakra on the top of your head, the heart chakra, and the navel chakra at the bottom of the image. And we're only using the central channel, not the side channels. So there are various changes in the physical body when we're sick and dying, and there are also changes within these energies in our body that happen after the physical body has stopped breathing. So as we go through the elements of the physical body, the dissolution, or it's called the dissolution of the elements, but also sometimes it's really about the function. They no longer function clearly and well in the body. And we also lose some of our sense consciousnesses, smell and things like that. So as we go through the meditation, we'll talk about all these different changes that happen in the body. And the purpose of that is that when it comes to our time to be dying, we're not scared or frightened or not knowing. We see this as just something that is a natural process, just as being born is a natural process, dying is a natural process. It's sometimes said that the real cause of death is being born. So until we can be free of cyclic existence, we're going to go through this again and again. So now would be a good time to turn away from your screens and lie down if you can, whether you can lie initially in that lion posture that Kirsten showed, or you can sit in a comfortable position if you wish, whatever's going to be most comfortable for you. So you can focus on the meditation. And as I say, people are comfortable in different positions, in beds, in chairs, whatever it might be. So just whatever's going to be comfortable for you, that'll be perfect. So the purpose of this meditation is that we become familiar with these various stages of death and the process of death. And the idea of that is that when we come to actually be in the death process ourselves, it's familiar, feels like an old friend. So initially when we think about our deaths, that's not how we think. But with familiarity and in time, it can certainly be a natural thing to think about our death. And so when we know something, we don't have the same level of fear. Very often it's the unknown things that we fear. So this is why it's said we need to practice the death meditation. So just make sure that you're comfortable and try and focus on the meditation and make it as realistic as possible. So imagine that you're dying now. You're lying in the posture that you're going to be comfortable in. Your relatives and friends are around you. And of course, they're upset. They're knowing that you're close to the end of your life and they're going to miss you. And this is why it can sometimes be difficult to let go of this life. So the more we know, the easier it is for us to let go of this life and move into the next life. So in the first stage of the death process, we start to feel weak and tired. And this can happen to us even if we've got quite a minor illness. Many of these stages of the physical body dying, we often experience them if we're sick. But then the process is reversed and we become stronger and we become well. But when it's actually the death process, we don't come back to feeling well. So as this earth element dissolves into the water element, we're starting to let go of all the things that are near and dear to us. As the body begins to die, the limbs become loose. And sometimes there's a feeling that the body's sinking down into the bed, even under the earth. Even just a sheet can feel like it's a great weight on the body. The body starts to feel really weak and powerless. And we're used to our body being able to do things, but because the earth element that brings strength to our body, it's not functioning well. So our body starts to feel really difficult to live in, really weak. In this stage, our sight becomes unclear and dark. Sometimes you can't even open or close your eyes. It's too much effort, even to move your eyelids. The luster of the body diminishes. Even simple little things are too difficult. There's no strength. And there's an internal vision, like a silvery blue mirage. So just try and see this as clearly as possible. So it sometimes says that we experience this silvery mirage when we fall asleep, if we faint. But most of us don't remember, and it's quite subtle. And because we're still part of this life that we're in now, with friends and relatives and nursing staff and whatever around us, we don't even notice. Then as the body disintegrates further, the liquids in our body start to dry up. So this is when the water element isn't functioning well. So saliva dries up, the mouth feels dry, sweat, urine, blood become much more concentrated. You don't experience, or you're not mindful of pain and pleasure and neutral feelings in the same way. And this means that you don't, if someone brings flowers, you don't necessarily feel pleasure about them. You don't feel upset if someone can't visit. And in this stage, your hearing changes. You don't hear external sounds clearly or internal sounds. But at the same time, sometimes people who become unconscious and then regain their consciousness, they do remember things people have said. So we need to be really cautious if we're around someone who's dying, because very often they can hear things. They can't respond to those things because they're not well enough. So it's always worth talking to the person, whether they hear you in the same way that we hear, or whether they're just comforted by the sound of your voice, knowing you're there, whatever it might be. If you're caring for someone who's dying, it's always nice to tell them that you love them and you care about them. So when you're dying, the internal vision at this time is a vision of a smoke-filled room. It said sometimes it's like a room where incense has been burning. So it's just a subtle smokiness. Then as the body disintegrates further, the fire element stops functioning in its normal way. So this is involved also with digesting food and drink, this fire element. So sometimes people become quite distressed when someone can't eat or drink, but even if they try to eat food or drink because it'll help you feel better, it isn't digested. There's no benefit for the person who's dying. So the body also starts to become cold, usually starting with the hands and the feet, but not always. The dying person loses awareness of the affairs of people around them, sometimes can't even remember the names of children or siblings. And also at this time, it can be quite noticeable that the breath in becomes weak and short, and the out-breath becomes longer and stronger. At this time, the sense of smell's lost, and the internal vision is of fireflies or sparks rising up from a fire. And then by the end of the fourth stage is when the breathing stops completely. So going through this stage, there are different things that you can't do. So you can't breathe in or out. Sometimes the breath, there'll be a long time between breaths. I mean, quite a long time. A man told me once that his wife stopped breathing for 10 minutes and he thought she died, but then she started breathing again. By this time, you can't perform any physical actions at all. You can't move. You're no longer mindful of external activities or reasons for anything like that. You're not aware of the different things that might be happening around you. Your consciousness begins to fall away. You're separating from all things around you. The tongue becomes thick, blue, and there's no ability to taste. There's no awareness of tactile sensations. There's no distinguishing between rough and smooth. The internal vision is like a flickering candle when it's just about to go out. So this little flicker just before a candle expires represents that even though our body's dying, there's still some flicker, some life still there. Even though all the physical processes of our body are stopped. So it's hard to imagine that this will happen with our body we're so used to living in, that we'll come to this stage where we can't do anything with our body, not anything at all. So these 4 stages represent the death of our physical body. And traditionally in Western medicine, they would say now the person has died. But the death process continues in a natural death with some internal processes. Our mind at this stage is still within the body. And when we completely die, the mind leaves the body. So the next 4 stages are stages of the dissolution of the subtle body, the chakras and channels that we looked at before. So during these stages, the consciousness becomes more and more subtle. And there are different signs associated with these changes. These are internal visions. And the majority of people who've had a near-death experience talk about seeing a white light. Some see it as all-pervading white light. Some see it as like coming from one central source and spreading out. And people who have religious beliefs sometimes interpret this as a light coming from their particular spiritual being. It could be like from Jesus or Mary or whoever that might be. It could also sometimes be interpreted as coming from a family member who's died, showing the way. But even people with completely no religious beliefs, no close family members who've died, still the majority of them have this white vision. So within the teachings of Buddha, this white light is said to be like a clear sky filled with white light, sometimes called the white appearance. So in this stage, all the subtle energy from all the channels in the upper part of our body come to the crown chakra. That subtle energy pervades all of our body during our lifetime, but now it all comes to the crown chakra at the top of our head. So then in the 6th stage, there's what's sometimes described as a clear sky filled with red light. It's sometimes called the red increase. And so at this stage, all the subtle energy from the lower part of our body is coming into the navel chakra. So try as much as you can to imagine those energies coming into those chakras. Your physical body is completely still, cannot move at all. And these subtle energies coming into these 2 chakras. So in the next stage, subtle energy from the top of the head, the subtle energy from the navel chakra move together to the heart chakra. And when they meet there, everything goes completely dark. And so this is sometimes called the black near attainment, this stage. And it's like we're just losing all our consciousness. It seems like we're going to completely lose awareness of everything. Imagine that you've completely detached from this life. All your energies have come to the heart chakra. To anyone looking from outside, there is nothing left. In a natural death, when the person's undisturbed, there are these other subtle changes that happen. And from this stage of complete darkness, in the last stage, we experience a very clear light. So this is called the clear light of death. So for us, it happens, for us ordinary beings, it happens just before the consciousness finally leaves the body. And it's associated with peace, calmness, and stillness. So for the great teachers, the great meditators, this is the stage that they use for their spiritual practice, because nothing can disturb this. And if they're left, if people are left undisturbed, they can stay in this very calm space. So we can all experience this complete peace and calmness and stillness. But what the great teachers can do is use that for their spiritual practice, to be completely undisturbed, no longer having the sense consciousness, no longer aware of sounds, sights, discomfort, who's around. And sometimes they can stay for days in this space. So if we become more and more familiar with this, we can also use this at some time. But for now, we're going to try and really get a feeling of this deep, calm stillness with a vision of a clear sky, this very clear light. A feeling of calm, stillness, and bliss pervade the entire body from head to toe. Let yourself go completely into that peaceful, calm stillness. No worries, no distractions, just lightness, bliss, and clarity. Stay with this sense of going deeper and deeper into stillness, clarity, and peace. There's a sense of absolute security and safety. Nothing can touch or harm you or interfere with this process. Stay with that feeling of peace and calmness, and know that this is the clear light of the mind at the time of death. This clear light appears just before the consciousness leaves to go to the next phase, whatever you perceive that to be. If we become familiar with this mind, filled with peace, brightness, and love, there'll be no fear of death. This calm, peaceful mind will be able to welcome death when it comes. There's no fear. It's said that this experience of the clear light is more blissful, more peaceful than anything we'll ever experience on earth. So let go of all the things that concern you and just let stillness and peace completely pervade your body and mind. Leave the mind just dissolve into peace, stillness and calmness, dissolving into the indestructible essence of our being. This clear light is the nature of the indestructible nature of our being, and it will go on. This indestructible, fundamental nature of our mind is what goes from life to life. Whatever you perceive is the next stage. Nothing can harm or destroy it. This indestructible part of our mind cannot be disturbed, harmed, or injured in any way. It just moves on. We need to learn to trust this process, trust this calmness, this stillness and peace. Then we won't fear death. We'll be able to help others as they approach their death. So through the layers of gross consciousness and feeling, we see that we're not yet ready to move on. We're not ready for the consciousness to leave the body. So we come back through the stages in reverse order. We pass from this clear light of death to the vision of darkness, unconsciousness, the fading of that clear light. Then that darkness fades and there's the vision of the redness, the red sky. This is the subtle energies coming back into the lower part of our body, being aware of that. The vision of the white appearance, the redness fading to the white light in a clear sky. The subtle energies of the top part of the body spreading out into the body again. The vision of the flickering candle. The vision like fireflies or sparks at night from a fire. the vision of the smoky, hazy room. The vision of the silvery grey mirage. And gradually come back to the awareness of your body. Being aware that you're alive, full of energy and strength. Gradually open your eyes, being aware of the room and your surroundings. When you're ready, just gradually sit up. Become fully aware of your surroundings. Feel that energy and strength. The clarity of your understanding. Take that clarity and strength with you into your life. And remember, there is that inner peace and calm nature of our essential mind. And we become more in tune with our true being, in tune with the universe. So just be still and calm. And know that that part is always in you, that calm, peaceful mind.
Thank you so much, Ani Lhagsam. It's such a valuable practice. We'll just wait a couple of moments to make sure we're back in our bodies. And Ani Lhagsam has kindly shared the liturgy of this meditation with us, and it will be available in resources in our Siddhartha's Intent Australia Living as Dying website when the website is up and running again. It's really recommended that we continue to practice this from time to time. And the recording will also be there on the website when the website is accessible again. And we can also use the recording for the practice. Now, if there are any questions, please feel free to unmute and ask your question, or you can write it in the chat box. I think we're all so calm. Ani La, we're beyond questions now.
Okay, yes, thank you, Ani Lhagsam. I've just got some chat questions appearing in the chat now, so I'm just going to read a couple of those out for Ani Lhagsam. Tanya is asking, is this recommended for people who are terminally unwell, meaning close to death?
Some people find it very helpful for them. I knew one man who used to get his daughter to read this, and they'd kind of do it together. And he always used to say to her, now you remember, if I die in this meditation, you've got to come back because you've got my grandkids to look after. So he really liked this meditation, and he was terminally ill. But for all of us, it just depends on people's disposition. And but we're all going to die, and the more familiar we are with it, the more we can not get frightened by it, to know that this is a natural process. This is something that happens to all of us. So depends a little bit on the person.
That's great. Thank you, Anila. Another question from Sophia. How can we offer help to a loved one who is already in the bardo and going through these stages?
Well, some of our teachers have recommended that in the bardo it's very good to dedicate our prayers for those who are in the bardo. And I asked a teacher once, when someone who'd been my teacher previously died, was there anything else I should be doing? And he suggested that I continue to dedicate prayers for their life, their next life, whatever life they're in, that they find all the resources they needed for good health and that sort of thing, so that they quickly again can practice Dharma and progress on their spiritual path.
Thank you, Anila. Christian, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, has a question. What happens to a person who commits suicide? Is the process the same?
Well, this process is described by great meditators who can meditate all the way up and then, send back the information or come back themselves, which most of us can't do beyond the white light stage. And so if someone commits suicide, it depends very much on their past experiences. It's karma that leads us to our next life, but often, unfortunately, people, when they commit suicide, they're not in a very good state of mind for remembering Dharma and things like that. So then, it depends what karmic seed ripens. And it said that if we have a calm, peaceful state of mind, this is the best state of mind, because a positive karmic seed will ripen, most likely ripen from that. So if someone's committed suicide, then we probably need some extra prayers and maybe ask a teacher if there are specific purifications we can do to help that particular person, specifically to help that person, especially through the bardo. If it's someone who is no longer in the bardo, then, we can always make prayers, do dedications, make offerings on their behalf for their future life, that they don't fall to that mental state again of such unhappiness.
Thank you very much, Anila. Chris has a question about the activities occurring around a person when they are dying or just dead, what the impact of activities around the dying person are, and is that a distraction from the white light?
Probably not so much from the white light, but certainly if someone's touched or disturbed, it can shorten the amount of time in the white light. And it said that ideally we have a calm, peaceful mind, and that usually happens in a calm, peaceful environment. But it's very difficult when there are a lot of people around, a lot of people upset, things like that. It can be quite difficult for us to organise that. You can't really say to someone, look, you're crying, go outside. That's, and we have the karma to die however it is that we die. And you know, as much as possible, we can try to have a calm, peaceful mind, free of distractions and detachments and attachments. But also sometimes the person themselves who's dying, they want to hold someone's hand and they want to be close and they want people to talk to them. So we're all different in our life. We live different ways, we die different ways. And so as much as possible, whatever we can do to bring calm and peace, then we have to accept there are limitations. We can't control everything and everyone, only ourselves.
It's lovely.
And not always ourselves.
There's a question here about helping one's mother who may be not a Buddhist and who is 96-year-old. How can I help my mum who is not a Buddhist, who is 96, to prepare simply for death?
Well, you know, Australians, we're a bunch of heathens. The last census says we've, I don't know, 40% of us or something don't believe in any religion. And that's, you know, I'm not debating that. And there are some people who believe that once your eyes are shut, once you can't open your eyes and you stop breathing, then that's it. It's just, you know, completely a black nothing. But surprisingly, some of these people still want to talk to me on a pretty regular basis. And they often want to reflect on their lives. Sometimes they've got regrets about particular things in their life. Sometimes they've got particular things that they remember no one else remembers now. It was, you know, their friends and family have died, and they've got these things that they want to talk about and reflect on and sometimes have regrets about. And their family are busy working, helping look after them, whatever it might be. But sometimes in terms of, you know, having a calm, peaceful mind, if you can sit with your mum and go through photos, talk about times when you were little or what things that were happy times in her life, then you can bring that calm and peace to her mind. And she may not have a religion as such, that she regularly attends a church or anything, but people do have quite often a belief in their own spirit, that they have a spirit that goes on, not always, but they have a sense that there's something afterwards. And it can be a bit awkward to ask your family. Of course, if someone asks to see me, they expect me to talk about that sort of stuff.
Lovely. Next question is from Sunma about doing the meditation that we've just been doing, saying that I seem to flip between the different stages, going back and forth from one to another and then returning to the particular stage that we're focused on. Is this okay?
Well, the thing is that the different stages, especially the physical dissolution of the physical elements, these go from one to another and they kind of happen together in some ways. Once, you know, we become weak and then later on we might be able to, something happens, our body rearranges itself, we regain some strength, we can sit up, we can talk, and at other times we can't. And so there is a bit of a mix. We have to describe them in some order. And generally when we're sick, we become weak first. It's one of the things that happens, but not always. Sometimes people can't digest food. They've still got a certain amount of strength and things like that. So it's not a wrong thing as long as you become clear in your mind about what these different stages mean in whatever order they might turn up, so that when at the time of your death, you recognise what's happening and don't get frightened and prepare for your death. If there are particular things that you know, last things you want to say to someone, whatever it might be, that you're able to do those things and you don't die with regrets.
Lovely. There's a question here from Lizzie, who's in Singapore, I believe. Could you please advise if it is possible for one to stay alert and not faint into unconsciousness when the red and white drops merge at the heart chakra during the end of the dissolution stage?
It said that there's this sinking feeling, how alert you might be able to stay. It's often thought to be quite a short stage. It's just when they come together, but then there's the clear light. And that's, you know, that's the really important stage. That's the stage when undistracted we can develop kindness and peace and really feel that sense of calm and stillness, and then go and lose all fear. And so whether it's a short time or a long time and how alert we might be probably depends on how well we were able to practice, but it says there's this sense of unconsciousness.
Thank you, Anila. There are many, many messages of gratitude and thank you for your precious advice. But there are no more questions that I can see there now. So thank you, Anila. Oh, one last question just snuck in. Okay, Ginny is asking, how important is it to avoid touching or sitting near the feet of a dying person, and after the person has died, but you can stay with the body for a while?
So particularly about the feet, it said that the ideal way for the consciousness to leave the body is to go up through the crown chakra, the subtle mind, to leave through the crown chakra. And there are practices, POA practices that help facilitate that, because depending on where the consciousness leaves the body can affect the next rebirth. Ideally, the body would, the person wouldn't be being touched and things like that, but it isn't always possible. Like I've seen, been with people when they've died, and they've died in a calm, peaceful way. One woman, her mother holding one hand, her daughter holding the other, and it was very calm and peaceful, just the three of us in the room. And she died without regret. She'd done all the things she wanted to do. And so for her, this was the perfect way to go. For other people, not so much. It's not that everyone can have every perfect circumstance as described. We don't have perfect lives, and there's an ideal that we can strive to, but we can't always arrange that. We can die in our sleep, accidents, all sorts of ways. And so if it's going to be, if the person feels totally isolated and everyone's deserted them, for some people that would seem very uncomfortable, and having someone touching them or holding their hand might be something that's calming and comforting for them. And so, that's the main thing, is to have this calm, peaceful state of mind. For some people, it's impossible to go. One woman knew that if she didn't let go of her partner's hand, the woman wouldn't leave. And so they collected various semi-precious stones and things, and she slipped one that was very precious to the two of them into her hand so she could actually let go and the person would leave. So it's different for different people.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So there's no more questions. So I'm going to hand back over to Sering now to finish up.
Yeah, thank you, Ben, and thank you so much, Ani Lhagsam. It's been a really amazing process that you've taken us through, and we'll now dedicate the merit. This virtuous accumulation of merit we offer, so that all obstacles dissolve, and at the time of our death, each of us may find ease in dying and swift rebirth in the pure land of great bliss, quickly gaining enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. Now, next week, we'll be continuing with chapter 4, How Buddhists Prepare for Death, with guest speaker, Dr. Julie Kidd. And we look forward to seeing you again next week. And thank you so much for joining us. And I hope you didn't have too many difficulties with getting the link with our website being down. And have a good week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank you
beautiful
very
week.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
very
Thank you
much.
so much. Thank you from UK.
Bye, everyone.
Depuis la France.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christina.